Hey everyone, welcome to this episode of the Crypto Leviathan podcast. I'm your host, Dalibor. This is Andrew. So this is our first one in a while where it's just the two of us. So Andrew, how's it going? What have you seen on the news that's popped up?
Um, so one article I read was about Chia. So Dalibor and I talked about Chia in the past, and essentially Chia is hard drive mining. So when it comes to mining cryptocurrency, you have GPU mining, you have ASICs, you have CPU, you have hard drives, and now you have routers. I think that's it as far as I know.
Yeah,
And
there's also like niche ones like memory mining, but that's really obscure.
so yeah, Chia is hard drive mining. The way it works is that you need a decent processor with a lot of cores, I think, and you need large capacity hard drives and either a good SSD or a large amount of RAM. And it generates like these things called plots, and they're 100 gigabyte files that I guess you would explain it as a bingo card. And then the mining process kind of picks random numbers or I don't know,
Imagine each 100 gigabytes as a bingo card, right? And if you score, yours gets picked, you get rewarded with a Chia. That's basically all it is.
So we got into it early, not early enough though, but really early. And we spent about like I think $10,000 buying the equipment, the hard drives. We had what do we had 200 terabytes or something like that.
Yeah,
Uh,
somewhere around 200.
and to date, after spending $10,000, I think we made like $500. So not the greatest investment.
I think
And
we're
I've
closer to 700 now. So
oh
700
yes,
US though. So
yeah,
that's
we're
like
getting
nine.
there. We're getting there. So yeah, for a little while, we're thinking that the Chia network or the Chia project, it's probably not going to go anywhere, and the only people who are using Chia are probably like the residual miners who didn't abandon the whole operation and are just selling the coins that they mine. But it turns out that there's actually some activity. So this article I read from the chiaplot.net, it did confirm that farming has slowed down. The amount of nodes has dropped from 350,000 down to 200,000. However, there is a lot of other types of activity. So there are a lot of developers getting on board, building apps, decentralized exchanges, games, things like that. So there seems to be a lot of interest using the platform or using the blockchain as a platform, and less so in the mining. And some pools are actually shutting down as well. So some pools are not doing well, some have shut down. So it's interesting to see that anyone's talking about this and that there's actually developers jumping on board. And I wonder why they're jumping on board Chia versus say Cardano, or what are the other ones that can support apps?
Polkadot, Cardano, Solana, Ethereum. Those are the big names, I would say.
Yeah, can you think of any reasons why a developer would develop on Chia versus the other ones?
I imagine gas fees might be a factor, but a lot of these networks like Cardano and Polkadot have very low gas fees in Solana. So I don't know. Maybe Chia's dev tools, as we've seen, like for example, the mining user interface is superior on Chia compared to any other platform. I think we can both agree on that. The UI, the user interface, you don't need to do anything in the command line. So maybe the developer tools that they're developing are similar scope, where it's very easy and it's more straightforward than these other networks. I could see that
Maybe.
being a big advantage if they do that.
Hmm. We should explore that. We should take a look into it anyway. Um, it would be interesting if Nice Hash could incorporate Chia into their client and take advantage of the hard drive you already have.
They probably could. I'm not sure if they want to do it though. Because the thing is, it's barely profitable. No one wants to do it, right? You might
That's
as well
true.
you might as well download the user interface and do it yourself because it's not complicated.
Yeah. So I have, I think, three personal 8 terabyte hard drives that are mining Chia. I think after my computer restart, I don't even think I even opened the client. That's how little I care about it. I'm thinking about using these hard drives just to back up my movies. But from a development standpoint, I might look at it and see what's going on there. Maybe their tools are better. I don't know. So this kind of segues into the main topic today, which was, mistakes that we've made in mining and
Just
lessons learned.
Yeah, this is like a little bit of overlap though. It's not just, I'd say crypto mining or crypto lessons. It's also like general business lessons that I think would apply regardless of what industry you're in, that I think are helpful. So, Andrew, where do we want to start with this one?
Let's see. So I think first off, I guess in contrast to what Marshall from last week was saying, how he doesn't necessarily do a lot of, I guess, research. No, he did say he did a lot of research, but I guess he
He kind of
would jump
jumps
on
in. Yeah, he jumps
jumps
in.
in.
Yeah.
It is risky. It's worked out well for him, but it is risky. So I think for Dalibor and I, more planning, a little bit more research, a little bit more contemplation before we jump into anything. And maybe if we had done that, we wouldn't have gone into Chia and we could have redirected those funds elsewhere, bought more GPUs, or who knows, right? Or even just bought some coins directly. We would have been way better off if we had just put that 10,000 in some kind of coin, even just Bitcoin probably. So just better decision making, better business decision making. So I think that's one of the big things. We've had, I think, 3 or 4 times where we just jumped on something without really thinking about it. It seemed like a great deal at the time, but if the crypto market's very volatile, mining included.
There's like a little caveat here as well. I think that's important to bring up is sometimes you have to jump on an opportunity. You can't afford to make it wait. However, you need to have baseline level knowledge of the decision you're making and weigh the pros and cons. A lot of the times when you jump into a decision, if you're not fully aware, these are the consequences I have because I don't have the full information. That's fine as long as you're aware. But for example, in like our cases, like Chia, we weren't aware of all the negative connotations that could potentially happen from it. But also there's a lack of information. And that was a risk that if we knew now, we probably wouldn't have taken. So that's important, is your degree of risk with everything. Our gamble, like it didn't break our business with like that, the 10K investment to Chia. However, if we invested in other areas, we've been further ahead. So I think that's another important thing is in crypto, you do want to experiment. You will lose some money, you will gain some money, but pick what risk tolerance you have. That's vital, not just for crypto, but any type of business.
Yeah. And I think the other thing too is this is specific for mining, GPU mining, ASIC mining. As soon as you set it up, as soon as you've configured everything, you start making money right away. You may not get paid out right away, depending on the pooling system that you're on. If you're with, say, ETH pool or Ethermine or something like that, and depending on how many cards you have, you might get paid out every other day. You might get paid out once a month. Depends on your hash rate. If you go with nice hash, you get paid every 3 hours. Fractions, you'll get paid in, a few dollars here, a few cents here, but you get paid all the time. But the issue with Chia is that you have to plot for potentially days or weeks until that hard drive is full before you can even mine off of it, correct? I think you have to fill the entire drive before you can mine. Like you can't do both, right?
Yeah, no, you can plot, you can farm Chia and plot at the same time.
Oh,
However,
right. I guess what I'm saying is you can't mine or farm off the full capacity of all your hard drives until the plotting's done. So say you
that
have,
is correct. So if you have 8 TB, it takes you maybe like a month to fill it out.
and so crypto's so volatile, you don't know what's going to happen in a month. And if you buy, say, 100 terabytes or something, it could be months before you're fully plotted. So that's another factor is plan for the long term, but don't commit yourself to something that takes several months because you don't know what the price of something will be several months down the line. So we kind of run into this issue recently where we kind of committed to buying a large amount of graphics cards, which may or may not be a good deal 7 months down the line because that's when we'll be able to buy them all. So it's like dozens of cards. We're hoping and we're optimists, so we're hoping that price of crypto will stay high and it'll be a good deal still. But if, say, proof of stake happens and the price of cards go back to retail and the market price of cards go down, then this commitment we've made then will not be a very good deal.
Yeah, but again, it goes back to my point, is that commitment that we've made, it won't bankrupt the business. That's the key thing whenever you make these type of decisions. So always remember in the mind, is if this goes wrong, am I out? If you're not out, it's not as bad of a decision. But if you're risking, like for example, if you're taking out maxing all your credit cards to buy graphics cards, that's not a good idea. So that's where I would position myself, is take risk, but keep it controllable.
And what about that ASIC? We bought this ASIC that I think we bought it, I want to say in July of last year. So, it's getting in a few months, it'll be a year, and we've never mined with it, not once. And I don't even know what the returns off of it right now. Probably barely break even with electricity costs.
I don't think it is break even anymore, but I still want to explore and figure it out, because I think we will be buying ASICs probably in the future. So we want to figure out how this thing works.
So that's the other thing. A lot of the mining equipment, whether it be ASICs or GPUs, it requires support equipment. So when it comes to the GPU, you need motherboards, you need risers, you need RAM, everything that a computer would need, but in larger abundance. So you have to make sure that those parts are still compatible, that you're not getting, like say you have a motherboard, say you have a graphics card, and then you buy a motherboard, but you didn't look at the processor that motherboard requires. Maybe those are more rare now, or something like that. So you kind of want to make sure you know exactly what you need lined up like a checklist before you make any of the purchases. That's what happened with the ASIC. We didn't really consider the electrical needs. So it took us a while to get some electrical outlets upgraded to 240 volt. And by the time we actually got around to doing that, it wasn't profitable anymore. So whereas if we had mined right away and we had the electrical done first, or or we found a solution before we bought it, we would have, the ASIC probably would have paid for itself twice over by now.
We could, if in hindsight, we could have sold it and flipped it and made some money too, but whatever. It's a learning experience. Like I said, all these like business, like you win some, you lose some. Like Andrew, remember when we were buying GPUs and then we were investing our own personal money, but it was the price of Ethereum kept going up, so it's getting paid back quicker and quicker. So like we've made some decisions that have panned out, some that have not panned out. So it's the luck of the draw. Like I said, crypto is very volatile, and you have to take that into account when you're dealing with this space.
Yeah. So when times are good and the returns are really good, it's just really ask yourself whether or not the money you're putting into it you can afford to lose. Because even though it seems great, the ROI might be like 5-6 months or whatever, but a month later that could change. That could change a week later. Who knows, right? So it sounds great now. It sounds like a no-brainer, but the next week you could be kicking yourself. So these are things you got to ask yourself whether this is money you can lose, and treat it like an investment. You put money in the stock market or in a casino for that matter. It should be money that you're willing to lose.
Exactly. I would not use the casino analogy because I think you're still more likely to make money here than a casino, but
True.
there is a huge amount of volatility, and also it kind of works in an inverse way, right? So when everyone's buying GPUs like crazy, it might be better off just waiting, right? I know we made the most money. Remember last year when EIP 1559 happened, and the mining returns dropped dramatically, like 50% in 1 month, but we still kept buying GPUs. That was the best time to buy because Ethereum rose like crazy. So we made a great decision then, but that doesn't mean like it could have easily went the other way. So that's just the nature of it. But the reason why our success is looking at in hindsight is a lot of people stopped buying GPUs, so the prices fell, so we got good deals.
Yep, fair enough. And from the business side of things, Dalibor and I know each other very well, but sometimes the things that we've decided upon could have been a year ago, and human memory is very faulty. So document everything, use Slack, use Signal, whatever, have a chat of all your business decisions so you can refer back to, just so you're not, trying to say, or you won't say to each other, what did we agree upon? And you both have a different recollection of what happened. So keep the documentation, whether it be on business decisions or even your finances, especially your finances. If you're going to go down the corporate route where you're incorporating, you're paying taxes, you want to keep good records. One lesson we learned This is an important one. Bank of Montreal, their business accounts, you do want to export your transaction statements to a CSV file, which is was it comma separated value, which generally opens in Excel. That's very useful to importing to other accounting software. It's useful for your accountant. BMO only allows a 2-month export. So say you've been in business for 12 months, you can only export the last 2 months. The last 12 months or beyond the 2 months, it'll be all PDF. And usually PDFs you can export to CSV. However, BMO statements, BMO's Bank of Montreal, for if anyone's listening from other countries, that's one of the larger Canadian banks. And to export to CSV from Adobe Acrobat, you need a password. Well, if you call customer service, they say they don't know what the password is and they won't get it for you. So we're pretty dissatisfied with BMO. It's making our accountant's job much more difficult. And so he's going to have to manually do a lot of this stuff. So I'm right now remembering to periodically log into our bank account and export that document. But going forward in the future, we'll seriously consider switching to another bank. And so if you are going down the business route, even for your personal needs, if that's a file format you need, look into it before you open a bank account.
It's absolutely ridiculous that they can't allow an export of one whole year. Like, why is it only 2 months? Like it's mind-boggling in 2022 that we have this issue, you know?
Right. You wouldn't think that this is a consideration that you would have to look at before opening up a bank account, but it is. And I don't know which other banks have this issue. I know for a fact that BMO does lag in software. Both Dalibor and I have some experience with BMO. We won't go too far into it, but we know from internally that they're a little bit behind in some ways. And
but still, Andrew, you could be behind, but you can only export 2 months. What is this? Like,
well, especially because I'm pretty sure the PDFs are being generated from like a CSV type.
yeah, they're storing the data in a database. So all they need to do is just enable that you can click this, you know?
Right. Maybe we'll see. Yeah, we'll see what happens if that's ever, because the first customer service associate I spoke with said he's well aware of this. They've received complaints before. And then when I called back for the password, they just said they don't have it. They don't give it out for security reasons or something like that. So
Are you kidding me?
yeah, it's my own statement. So I don't know.
What a joke. Like, honestly, I'm sorry, Bebo, but that's a joke. Like, that's a joke. You need to fix that. Like, you're losing business. Like, Andrew, like, we're thinking about leaving BMO because of this. That's how vital it is to us.
Yeah. Well, I'm hoping our accountant doesn't charge us extra for that, more for the extra work we've given him.
Mhm.
Hopefully he doesn't, but that could cost you extra money, right?
Yeah.
You think your BMO account, maybe you go to BMO because it's a little bit cheaper than a competitor, but if it's going to cost you more in accounting fees at the end of the year, then it's not worth it.
Yeah.
So enough BMO bad mouthing. Let's we can move on. Any other business tips you got there?
Choose your co-founders very wisely. So you have to pick whenever you pick like a team to work with, get to know them on a personal level. It's not enough to say, hey, we have the same common goals and ideals. You need to know how they work, how they operate, and also what type of people they have in their lives, right? So because people can have influence on them, right? So like, for example, if they have, a
Parents.
partner, parents, cousins that, weigh in deeply on their decisions, you could be potentially dealing with another person. So always keep that in mind. Also, I would say is you have to understand what their long-term goals are. Because, for example, if one person's like, I want to sell the business in 2 years and you want to operate it for the next decade or 20 years, that's a clear conflict right there. So figure out all this stuff, vet very carefully. And that's the biggest thing I can say. Don't rush into decisions. Leave time. Because, for example, like when we interviewed a few investors, we took like weeks to figure out, hey, maybe we shouldn't proceed with you,
Right, because you want to check what other projects that person has going on, whether or not they have the time to devote, if they have money tied up elsewhere, what they're, if they have any legal liabilities that they got to deal with. They could be great, but if they have a lot of stuff that's preoccupying their time, or their money or the cash flow, then maybe they're a good fit, but maybe it's just not a good time for it.
Absolutely.
And look at their work ethic too. I owned a business a long time ago in Toronto. I had a car rental business with two other guys that I met from a job I had, like a part-time job. And we got along fine. Like we had a similar sense of humor, but we were all slackers at work. And you don't want to be the hardest working one on the team. You don't want to be with people who are lazier than yourself. And so I didn't take that into consideration. And not just that, they were I think they didn't have a customer service mindset. I'll leave it at that. And because of that, we had some very irate customers. So you want to have people who are suitable for the type of business that you're operating. So if it's a tech business, then you want people who are knowledgeable, who are tech savvy, who have that experience. If it's something service oriented, someone who's actually worked there, who knows how to talk to people and how to deal with customers. So it's not
Yeah,
something I've learned.
that's like hitting the nail, right? You need to find people whose skills like overlap with yours, right? So for example, like I'm very technically gifted. I'm a software developer. I can plug code out as much as possible. You probably wouldn't want me in front of a sales room pitching or trying to sell something. So I'd probably partner with a guy saying, hey, I'll build the product, you sell. So you want to find people who complement your skills. That's, I think, vital and to the success. Same thing if you're a heavy financial business, you need to partner with someone who knows the banking industry in and out. And so that's another thing to take into consideration. I think it's incredibly overlooked. Having 3 people that have the same skill set, why are you even partnering with them?
Yeah, so I think for our business, I think we have a pretty good mix. We have another partner that he's uh, an expert miner, mining for many
He's
years.
Superman in mining.
Yeah, Dalibor and I are a little bit more, I guess, business oriented. We took business in school. We've ran businesses before, some successful, some not. So, but we do have that experience to draw from. So, and yeah, we're still on it. We're still on this journey here with this business. So we'll see how it goes. The big thing to look out for us is the proof of stake for Ethereum. Any news from that as to when that's projected?
They're still saying the same dates, but that's to be seen. I don't trust the dev team. They've delayed many, many times before. And it hasn't been like a few month delay, it's been years delayed.
So what's the date they said? June?
Yeah, I think it's still June.
Okay. So we'll see. I mean, we'll just keep mining as if it's not going to happen, and then we'll see what happens after. But after we buy off the cards that we've committed ourselves to, we might just hold cash for a while and kind of just wait out and see what's going on.
Yeah, that's another thing I think that's important to discuss. Your business, you should always have a cash reserve. And there's a couple of reasons why. Number one, equipment might break down. Number two, you might find a great investment opportunity that you can divert the capital to. Number three, you may have some renovations or some debts that need to be cleared off, or some unintended expenses. Like for example, you get fined, taxes, etc. So always keeping like a certain percentage in the bank account is vital to any business's survival, I would say, because especially in the early stages when you don't qualify for a line of credit or a credit card, you can't really afford to be running with a small balance unless you're willing to personally contribute. But then that could potentially become a money pit where you have to constantly put your own money into this business.
Yeah, for sure. And what are some expenses we have coming up? Taxes. I think that's our first priority. We don't know how much we'll owe. So unlike working where you have taxes coming off of every paycheck and you're likely looking forward to a return where you get some of that back, for businesses, you don't have that. You don't have someone taking away, part of the revenue from each month. You're going to
But
do your taxes
you
at the end
can
of your fiscal.
you can project how much you approximately pay, but you don't know the exact figure. That's the problem.
So you have to make sure you have that amount. And, we knew this. We just weren't the best at practicing what we preach. And, our business was very much living paycheck to paycheck. So
For a long
something
time.
something we're gonna look to improve upon in in this next fiscal year. And it's hard because it's a very emotional business, because it's like, I imagine it's the same high you get from the stock market, the same high you get from the casino, where you're like, oh my God, if I buy this card, it breaks even after 3 months. So you empty out your bank account and you're like driving around town buying up cards. And there's that FOMO, that fear of missing out, because the shelves are empty. You see Kijiji cards are going for like, 1.5 times retail or whatever, double the retail. And so you feel like you need to get every card you can get. But then 2 months later or a month later, the market changes. We go into a bear market, and now you're kind of regretting your decision. So you kind of have to have that discipline where you need to make a plan and stick with it.
Oh, I know what we're doing next time this happens. We're going to sell all our crappy old cards when that happens. Cards that we wanted to get rid of or are barely profitable. When there's that bull market, we're selling them all, and we're all going to take a massive profit on them. So that's what we're going to be doing next time.
Yes, but for anyone listening, our cards are high quality, well maintained. They just may not be as profitable as something you could go buy retail or from a scalper at this future date, but they'll be well maintained. Our partner, it's one of his hobbies. I think he takes them apart. He blows the dust off. He'll replace the thermal paste, put new thermal pads. It's his thing.
He takes out cars that are brand new and smells them. He has his passion. So let's just put that out there.
Well, I'm actually looking forward to it. At some point in the summer, the three of us will get together, and I was saying that we can do one rig at a time, take the rig apart, do a full, thorough, detailed cleaning, take each card apart. It's it's kind of like, some people find cleaning very relaxing when you're just doing the dishes. It's one of those things. I can just picture us three doing, cleaning these cards, maintaining them, and just chit chatting.
What was that crazy card that he bought that has that screen on there? I forget what. Remember
Oh,
that?
was it? It wasn't the 3090, the white one, was it?
No, it was an Aorus card, and I think
Okay.
it had like a little screen on there. And I think he was talking about he was gonna put the Ethereum logo on it.
Yeah. So for some reason it has a screen. So I guess if you have a clear side panel on your desktop build, then you can maybe put like a logo or some kind of
Yeah.
graphic or something. So
Yeah, I don't remember what card this was exactly, but I know it. I know the brand is Aorus. Like,
I haven't
oh,
actually seen it in person. I think it's at his house
yeah,
or something.
it's at his place right now.
Yeah. So the three of us are all kind of scattered right now because of work and things like that. So when it gets warmer, we'll have to get together and just do some maintenance and all that kind of stuff. Aside from that, I think those are most of our lessons learned.
Well, I would say there's a few others. I would say is this is maybe not just mining related, but first know that the market exists for what you're trying to sell. Like if you're creating an NFT for selling pieces of the moon, well, people, can you actually enforce that? Will people actually buy? You don't know, maybe, but you
Is that a
need
real
to.
thing?
No, I just made it up.
Okay.
But yeah,
It,
first verify a market exists.
okay. So there is a situation, or sorry, there was an incident like that where there was I want to say a businessman. He said he claimed a chunk of the moon. I want to say it's either the moon or Mars. I don't recall. And I think he wrote like an official, some sort of petition or something to the United Nations claiming this land. And then he started selling chunks of it via like certificates online. And I had a professor in university who actually had he had some of that. He had a deed to a piece of
Mhm.
moon territory. And the rationale is that this guy's claim is better than all the other claims because he was the first to actually put pen to paper and try to, present something to the United Nations. So, we'll see. Ultimately, it's going to be whoever gets there first and whoever starts building first. So it's going to, the Mars, Elon Musk probably will have the best claim on Mars.
We'll see. Maybe we could try selling NFTs. Do you want a plot of land on Mars?
Yeah. Well, actually, that reminds me, there is a new metaverse world, I guess, where it's you can buy NFTs. I think it's called Super World or something like that. One of my clients told me about it. So apparently it's a Google Earth overlay. So you can buy actual deeds or actual plots of land that you would see in real life. So you can buy your own house. The issue there is that because it's so large compared to the central land, which the central land has a very small, finite amount of properties, if it's the entire world and realistic plot sizes that correspond to what the city actually has on file or what the jurisdiction has on file, then and there's just way too much, right? So you're gonna have you're not gonna have enough participants in this metaverse that's actually interested in NFTs to really get a return. So unless you go after celebrity homes. So my client told me that the house he was trying to buy Snoop Dogg's house. And I think that was sold. So he tried to buy Snoop Dogg's neighbor's house. And then he asked me what I would buy. I said I'd buy Bill Murray's house or Bill Murray's neighbor's house. So those are the properties that will sell well in the super world metaverse. Your own house, you can buy it. It'll be, maybe cool to have, but I don't think you'll be able to sell it for more just because there's so much.
If you'll be able to sell it at all, that's another
Yeah.
question.
Because Dalibor, if you buy your own house or one of your properties in this NFT world and you try to sell it to me, I wouldn't pay what you paid for it. I wouldn't even want it. So,
well, it again returns back to the point is what's the utility value of it, right? If you're just owning a piece of land in this digital world, why can't I create my own world and just own whatever I want, right?
so you know how Bitcoin doesn't have the same inflation problem that fiat currency has?
Yeah.
And some people say crypto doesn't have that issue, but certain cryptos do, such as Dogecoin, Ethereum, can theoretically have no limit. But cryptos suffer from another kind of inflation. I don't know what the term you would call this, but I would call it inflation of like variation. Each coin might have a finite amount, but you can have an infinite amount of copies of that coin, forks after fork after fork. How many Bitcoins are there? Bitcoin Cash,
Oh my
Bitcoin Gold.
God. Like there's probably over 30 clones at this point. But the thing is, there's probably you can make an infinite number. I could create a clone tomorrow of it.
Right. So there's only 21 million Bitcoin, but you can make 21 million Bitcoin forks or more. You can make a billion.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, it's kind of like fiat, right? Where Bitcoin's recognized value because people believe it has value. Similar to the reason why these other forks have no value is because people don't believe there's value. So I think it goes back to that narrative.
So to credit Peter Schiff, then really the most valuable thing on earth is probably gold and silver because you can't make any more of that.
That depends on your perspective as well, right? Because if we go to another planet or another comet, just bring a whole bunch of gold here, all the gold on earth becomes devalued.
True. Yeah. If you capture an asteroid and you start mining asteroids, it could be trillions and trillions of tons of gold or platinum or whatever. But currently, probably within the next 10, 20 years, gold and silver is finite. There's only so much, and it gets more and more difficult to dig it out of the ground each passing year.
I think the important thing is anything that's limited in supply is valuable no matter what it is. So picture diamond rings, like getting the expensive Tiffany's. They're rare. That's why they're valuable. They don't have any intrinsic value besides, their cool jewelry. Same thing with like Ferraris or Lamborghinis or these expensive vehicles. They all have value because they're limited. If they produced a million Lamborghinis, they wouldn't be worth much. They'd be worth maybe as much as a Mercedes, sports car. So scarcity is what creates value. And because Bitcoin only has 21 million, that's what creates Bitcoin's value.
Back to the metaverse. So I went to a job fair today, not because I'm looking for a job, but because of the format that was presented. I thought it was very interesting. It was a virtual job fair, and it's the first one I've attended. I always thought a virtual job fair would be kind of like what me and Dalibor are using right now, Zoom. You might have a list of participants, awkwardly messaging each one or whatever. This one was set up kind of like Pokemon, like the original Game Boy Pokemon game. Looked very similar graphics too, with color. You have a little avatar. You walk around the map, and you have. So the first thing was they had a panel. So they had a bunch of employers for an hour discussing various topics and doing a Q&A with the audience. So you actually walk up and use your keyboard with a WASD on your keyboard, and you go pick your seat, and then you can see like little windows, little screens of each of the people talking. And if you're asking a question, you can turn your camera on. Then afterwards, you had booths, just like you would have at a trade show or a job fair. Each company had a booth, and you walk around, and only when you get close enough to the person, their avatar, does their webcam window show up. So you'll see them and they see you and it connects. If you just walk away a few steps, it disconnects. Just kind of like in real life, you can just walk away from someone, right? And they're just waiting there, at their computer, and they're ready to talk to you, just like at a regular job fair. And then you say, "Well, nice to meet you, thanks," and then you just move your character, walk to the next booth. So it's really cool, and I can see this being, I guess, more and more popular in the future, especially as virtual reality headsets go down in price. So once you have the Oculus 3, I think Oculus 3 is coming up, they can get that down, below, I'd say, I don't know how much that's going to cost, but when they can get these things down to like $100 or, around that mark, I think enough people will have them. And these types of experiences will become more and more common. So we do have the fashion show coming up in a couple weeks, I think, which is very similar to this.
Yeah, it's 27th, 26th, somewhere in that range. So I think the last week of March.
So the fashion show is pretty, I guess, clear what's going to happen. I think you're just sitting in the audience, you have your headset on, and you see the runway. And to go to a virtual job fair in the future in the metaverse with your VR headset, it'll be in Decentraland, it'll be in one of these worlds, and you'll be at a venue, you'll see booths, with your joysticks, or, maybe by the time this becomes common enough that the average person who's looking for a job would actually use this, maybe you'll have those like at home treadmills, those
Hamster
omnidirectional,
wheels, I call them.
yeah, those like omnidirectional
Yeah.
treadmills, and you can kind of just walk, and then you have your headset, and you'll see them sitting at their booth. So I thought it was really fun. I thought it was pretty neat.
Could you imagine video games and that, like how realistic they'd be, and inside a treadmill like that?
Well, what I've never actually gone to is one of those virtual reality arcades, because some of them have that kind of stuff. There's
Wow.
I know in Alberta they have a place called the Rec Room. I think there's one in, I want to say in Ontario, probably in the GTA. And I know that they have a lot of virtual reality type stuff there. So when I was growing up, there was I think it was called Dave and Buster's. It was like an arcade restaurant for adults, and I don't know if that's still around. So I don't know if they have any association with Rec Room, if it's the same company, but it's a very similar business model. But now they've incorporated a lot of VR. So I'm looking to go to one next time I'm in the Toronto area.
Absolutely. I think another, just to segue a little bit, I think another point that we missed for business that's probably arguably another very important factor for the vast majority of businesses is marketing. You need to connect with people, you need to network with the right people in order to obtain the knowledge or develop the connections you need. So let me just give you an example. So let's say you're looking at it for a warehouse to rent space in order so you can mine crypto. Well, you need to know people who are in the commercial space who own these properties, and you also need to know real estate agents who can help you in this area. Similarly, let's say you're trying to sell NFTs. You're creating a project to sell NFTs. Well, you need to have a marketing plan. How are you going to get to these people that are actually willing to contribute to this project that you have? So that's another factor I don't think we touched, but I think it's vital, because if you don't have a plan, if you can't sell your stuff, your business is gone. It's toast.
Was I muted there? Can you hear me coughing?
No, you're all good.
Okay. Yeah. So my throat's super dry. I haven't had anything to drink in a few hours. So, but yeah, that's a very good point. Networking is super important. I haven't done as much of it as much as Dalibor. Dalibor has met a lot of people in real estate, a lot of people in crypto. I'm kind of getting to that now. I met a realtor in my city. She's a realtor, but she's also involved in crypto. She goes to a lot of crypto meetups. So she invited me to go to one. So I think it's hopefully next week they'll have it. So it'll be a good opportunity to network and meet some people who are like enthusiasts.
Yeah, it's great because you learn stuff. Like every guest we have on the show, you learn something new about the industry that we didn't think of, right? So just finding people who are involved in the space broadens your knowledge so you can think of business opportunities. Like when Marshall came on their show last time, I'm like, oh, cool. Like, what can we do in this space? I've never even thought of like the things that he talked about. So it's great.
Yeah, he had a lot of great ideas. I love his ideas.
Yeah. So that's also the benefit is, don't look at other people in the space as competition. They are in a certain way, but it's more of a collaborative way. Obviously, if you're developing like something top secret with a secret formula, obviously keep that secret, but 99% of businesses aren't like that. Your business is probably like, hey, I'm trying to sell this. I need these people on board, and then it's smooth sailing. That's the vast majority of businesses. If you can figure that out, you can do anything you want, basically.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, his ideas are really good. And I remember I knew a guy who approached me, asked me to develop something for him. And he's like, it's top secret, almost wanted me to sign an NDA. And he just told me a couple things about the business. I won't go too far into it. Um, Pretty much he worked in a certain industry and he wanted to connect people from that industry to end users. I'm like, you're talking about Uberification. I think that's what they call it. And you can use that business model for anything. You can use it to connect people who sell marijuana to people who want to buy marijuana. With Uber, it's people who, drivers and passengers. Airbnb is homes versus, renters or people who just want to stay. So it's all it is a platform to connect people. And by no means is this, he didn't invent the wheel here. And I was able to actually just guess by asking like one or two questions. I could guess his whole business model. And then in the end, I didn't want to do it. Like I didn't want to partner with him. I said I'd build it for money, but I wouldn't want to partner because I just don't see a value in it. Um, so I don't know what my point of that story is, but I guess sometimes you do want to keep your ideas secret if it is warranted. But sometimes if your idea is just like a slight variation of something else that already exists, you it's very, very likely that hundreds and hundreds of people have the same ideas. Probably other people working on it right now. So instead of keeping it secret, maybe just get it up and running. And your advantage will be that you'll just have it out first and maybe you'll outmarket them. But if you're just using like the Uber business model on something, it's probably not original.
And it's not bad to not have an original idea. Sometimes you need to push it, to people for to adopt it. That's I think more challenging than coming up with an original idea. And most of the time, most ideas are like about refinement. So let's say you found a more efficient way to manufacture something. That's most ideas. If you come up with an idea that's like revolutionary, like I don't know, inventing the light bulb or figuring out fusion energy, that's something I would say that you definitely want to keep secret because that's a game changer, right? But most 99% of ideas aren't that. Those are like the 1%.
Yep. Yeah, I don't think I have anything else to add in regards to business lessons learned. I'm sure there'll be many, many more blunders we'll have in the next 12 months that we'll report here.
But that's the point, right? When you run a business, you'll always have blunders and you have to learn from them. So you don't repeat the same mistakes again. So like we've had failed businesses, me and Andrew, but we've learned from them. And we take each lesson from that business and apply. Like we've gone better at running these businesses because of all the lessons we've learned previously.
So with that being said, would you say that we've learned more in running failed businesses than we ever did in business school?
Yes.
So Dalibor and I both went to business school. We met in our undergrad, and yeah, everything that's taught there was, I guess it's good exposure to learn the basics, but it's very different than running a business. And so if I had to go back, I probably wouldn't have gone to business school.
No, not at all. I don't think it preps you because I think if business school wanted to teach you business, they need to say run a corporation for a year, see how far you get. And I think failure shouldn't be a problem. If you can go and say, hey, I failed because I didn't know what I was doing, or I didn't have proper marketing, or I was incapable, that's fine. You've learned. Now your next business and your second year is probably going to be way more successful. And then your third year, if that one also failed, you're way more likely to succeed because you now know more things of not to do and what things to do. So it's a learning process and it doesn't come naturally. Like I'll be totally honest. You think that things will work in your head, but then when you apply them, it doesn't make sense.
So my first business, it wasn't with Dalibor, it was a car rental company. Didn't make any money. It was too hard to compete with like Hertz and these guys, and not the greatest team. Not to blame them too much, but it just wasn't a good fit. And first business with Dalibor, it was me, Dalibor, another business partner. We're trying to do a startup, like a software startup, we had some issues there. We picked a market that required partnerships with big companies, and that kind of limits you because if you can't get them to sign on board, then you don't have anything. And then after that, we started I guess I guess you can call it an education company that we just weren't good at marketing. We didn't market enough, and there's also a lot of competition. But each one went from making like negative money to a little bit of money, and then now with mining, we're actually making money where we have to pay taxes.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
so it's getting better. It's getting better. But if you have kids and you want them to grow up to be, businessmen and women, then I think a great way to learn and something I never did was just get them to open up was it a lemonade stand, and then get them to do the bookkeeping themselves, and they'll learn. They'll learn.
Yeah, bookkeeping is something none of us enjoy doing. There's very few select people I think that actually enjoyed doing that.
But imagine you had a kid and they had a lemonade stand, and you could teach them the difference between revenue and profit, and
Yeah.
you know the the inputs for the business: cups, lemons, sugar, water.
Variable cost, fixed cost, it's all there,
Yeah,
right? All the
right.
basics.
And you can teach them at like a very young age doing something that is kind of fun too.
And think about this is a course in university, right? That we're talking about that you could be taught at a very young age. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So, but there are definitely programs in university I think that are really worth it. STEM. So if you do anything that's engineering, physics, all that kind of stuff. And some things that definitely require education. You can't just go be a nurse or a doctor by just winging it, right? You do need years of school for that. Business you can kind of just learn from trial and error, in my opinion.
But that is
However,
business, trial and error. So it makes
but there are a
sense.
few business streams that you do need to go to school for. So accounting specifically, because you need those courses to get your chartered accountant or whatever it's called now, CPA. So you do need a minimum amount of specific courses for that. So if you want to pursue a career in accounting, then you need that. If you want to be a CFO, that's probably the only one that requires any kind of formal schooling.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Yeah, like being a business owner, it doesn't require any schooling. I think that's very important. Going into university for entrepreneurship is kind of like an oxymoron, I would say. The best way to become an entrepreneur is actually to run a business, not to get educated for it. If there was a business school, like I said, that basically you're just running a corporation for 4 years or multiple, then yeah, I guess you could take that. But you don't need to go to school for that.
Well, we should say that you don't need to go to school for it if you're looking to run a business, but if you want to work at a business and just learn the skills to work at a business, then it might make sense because you learn how to use Excel properly. You learn operations management, like basic data analysis, some basic finance skills. You learn all these things that can kind of give you at least an idea of what to expect in the workplace, and whether it might help you or it might deter you. You might say, "Oh, I really don't want to do this. I don't enjoy this." So
Yeah.
for skills, yeah.
Yeah, like one thing I think me and Andrew can definitely, we don't like accounting. And that's another thing I think it segues into it. Outsource work you don't want to do. So like me and
If
Andrew,
you can afford it.
yeah, if you can afford it, but outsource it because we hate accounting. So we're looking for a bookkeeper, to handle that for us so we can focus on other avenues. This is important for everything in life, right? If you can make enough money and you're like, man, I hate doing this work, outsource, and now you can do more of the work you enjoy doing. So that increases your revenue. For example, it may cost you $100 to get your bookkeeping done every month, but you're like, I save 5 hours a month, and in those 5 hours, I can generate an extra $1,000. So it clearly makes sense. Hire the bookkeeper, make an extra $900. That's the way
Yeah,
you
I
should
agree.
look at it.
Because Dalibor and I, we make okay money in tech, and for him and I to through trial and error figure this stuff out, it'll take like twice as much time and probably twice as much money from opportunity cost than
And
someone who does this.
mistakes, don't forget
Yeah,
that.
and compared to someone who does this as a living, who would just charge us $30 an hour or whatever, and is just doing this for a part time. So if you can afford it, sometimes that's a good decision.
Well, I'll give another example. So like for real estate, like I have a property that's currently vacant, and I'm trying to fill it. And I tried, to take it on my own and try to find tenants. And I realized I don't have time for this. Like I have other responsibilities. So for me, it's more worthwhile hire someone, find these tenants, bring them to me, the people that they think are qualified, and I'll pick from a list. And I think that goes for everyone. Once you reach a certain stage in life, time becomes more important than actually doing all the work.
I think we're going down the list of just business regrets in general. So I have another one. If you buy a condo, if you can afford it, get the parking spot, buy the parking spot with it, buy two if you can. I bought a condo east of Toronto, like 2-3 years ago, and I didn't buy the parking spot because I was like, oh well, you know what? I'm renting it out. I'm renting it to students primarily. Most students don't need a car. Even if I were to live there at some point, then I can just I'll rent the spot from the building. I didn't look into it any further. It would have only been like an extra like $10,000 or something like that. And then I had a tenant there, a tenant that was great. She was in there for a year or something like that. And then she contacts me and says, and asks me if I can get her a parking spot because she's gonna bring her car this upcoming semester. And I was like, oh yeah, easy. I'll pay for one through the building. Building wouldn't rent me a spot. They said that you had to buy one when you bought the condo, otherwise you're out of luck. I wasn't aware of this. So look into that if you're actually thinking about not getting the spot, but I recommend getting the spot. So I lost a perfectly good tenant that always paid on time. That was very nice and, got along quite well because I couldn't get her a parking spot. So she actually had to move to another building because a lot of the vacant units in that building didn't have parking spots. So she ended up moving to a house or something like that. So, get that parking spot and you never know when you might need to put a car or have a guest or something like that.
Yeah, also, parking spots, especially in big cities, are always worth money, and you can rent them out for additional cash flow. So in
Yeah.
your sense, Andrew, if it was only 10 grand, you could rent it out maybe for like $100 a month.
Well, I'd be rolling it into the mortgage. I would have rolled
Yeah,
that amount to the mortgage.
exactly. Or you could have even better, you keep it separate from the mortgage and then you can increase it. It's not tied to the rent. So that, obviously this is now venturing in a totally different topic. So
So yeah, these little add-ons that if it only costs you a little bit, then get it. But at the same time, it's like you're buying a property and it's a new development and they're trying to, ask if you want to add, you know, marble countertops and all that kind of stuff starts to add up too. So that's a little bit different. The parking spot has a lot of utility. The other stuff is a little bit more subjective.
yeah, I think it goes back to running a business, keep it lean. I think that's the point that we're talking about. Keep it lean, but make sure you have all the check boxes checked out that you need. So parking spot, vital. Like Andrew says, do you need that granite countertop or can you just get away with the concrete one? Yeah, you could probably just get away with the concrete one, right? Do you need that marble flooring? No, I can just have the regular tile. There's certain things that you have to trade off where it's like I can save money here and I can spend money there. This goes for every business.
But you did say if you go all high end, it'd be more worthwhile for Airbnb or luxury rentals.
Oh yeah. Well, it depends on what demographic you're going to target. That's another discussion, right? So if you have like a luxury Airbnb totally decked out, it's always going to be full, period. However, you're going to pay much more higher upfront cost for that. So everything in life has trade-offs. Also, if you have a luxury rental in a recession, that's probably not going to be filled. But if you have a duplex, that's always going to be filled because that's the cheapest rent. So like I said, everything's about balancing. It's about figuring out strategies that work for you.
Don't you know a guy that cuts granite? Because we were just talking about countertops. He learned himself watching YouTube videos how to cut granite.
That guy's a crazy guy. Yeah. He switches careers quite often, but a fantastic and very hardworking individual.
He reminds me of Elon Musk, but just not in the tech field.
No, and he's more like a blue collar version, I would say, where he's great. Like, how do you say, anything that doesn't require a lot of thinking, he's really good at.
Right, but similar to Elon Musk, he spends every waking moment working.
Yeah. You know how most people, like, I imagine, Andrew, if you work probably, I don't know what your limit is. I think mine's around 12 hours. After 12 hours, I'm just done. I can't work anymore. But everyone has their limit of how many hours they can work. And I think that's another perception about business is you don't necessarily need to work like 16 hours to be successful. you need to work efficiently. That's more important. So for example, if it takes someone 16 hours to do something, but you get it done in 4, that's still perfectly fine. The amount of hours doesn't mean success.
Yeah, fair enough. And with your buddy there, when I think of him, he's an inspiration, makes me want to work harder. That guy will work like 16, 18 hours a day. He used to drive, he used to deliver packages and work
Yeah.
6 a.m. till 2 a.m.
Yeah.
When he just deliver packages at night, like knock on the door and people are like asleep.
I don't know if he did that. I would have to ask him, but I know he was crazy when it came to delivering. He would
Well,
deliver like what 3 trucks would deliver.
yeah. Well, anything else you want to talk about?
No, I think that's good. I think we've talked about a variety of things. Next week, we'll try to get on a guest. If not, we're going to have another cool topic to talk about.
Yep.
All right, guys. See you next time.